Hey there, friendly face. Today we're going to be looking at Toast, the self-proclaimed insane and no-nonsense CSS grid. Toast is brought to us by Dan Eden, who is the same person who created animate.css and baseline.js. He's a cool guy. I used Toast for a job I did recently, and I want to share with you what I learned about it. I was looking for something that was simple and easy to use, and Toast really fit that bill wonderfully. I chose Toast for two reasons. Number one, it was small and not attached to any larger framework, so it was really easy just to drop inside of my work and have it work. Number two is that it has pixel perfect gutters, not rems, not ems, not percentages. We're talking pixels, and that's actually kind of rare in CSS grids, and that really intrigued me, so I wanted to try it out. All right, so like I said, it's super easy. Let's just get started. As I said, Toast is simple and fun. So all I'm gonna do is head over to that Google homepage here, and I'm gonna Google Toast Grid. The first result is the one we wanna go to, and it's just the explanation of how to use Toast Grid. Pretty darn simple. I'm going to go into the GitHub repository. There's a link on the bottom. So I'm not even going to download the whole repository. I want to keep this as simple as possible. So I'm going to go to the SCSS folder, and you could either just, click in here and just highlight the whole thing. This is what I did, and copy and paste it into a new file. So in my repository here on the left, let me show you how I got this working out. I have a Sass style, and I'm importing Toast Grid. Toast Grid is exactly a mirror of what we have here on the GitHub repo. Sass is importing that Toast Grid, and then I have a few overrides, like the body, I changed the font, I put a container around it. Here is my index, and you can see that it's just a regular HTML page with a container. And I'm using Jade, by the way. Jade is a really simple way to write HTML markup. Everything that I do here in Jade can be replicated with regular HTML. See, watch, when I save it, Jade, it outputs it as HTML. See, it's just a div with a class of container. And then I have an include here inside the container, and this is where we'll be working in this include. It's just a blank Jade file. So the Sass imports the Toast Grid, and then I have a few styles, like for the container, I have a few styles set up for a box and tall and tinted. You'll see what those mean in a few minutes. But what we want to focus on is toastgrid.css and gridmarkup.jade. Pretty simple right now, okay? All right, so we're going to start our demo by writing out the box class. This is something that I invented. It's just a 20 pixel tall div with a background color in it. Now we're going to take this box and stick it inside of our grid and chop it up in a lot of different ways. And I'm going to use this box basically as content, ideas to show you how to use this grid. So with the Toast Grid, you want to create a wrapper around all of your columns. The wrapper in Toast Grid is just simply called grid. This is by default. And in the columns, you'd write grid __ column. And then to identify how big the column is going to be, you're going to write this again, grid __ column -- and then you would write 1 of -2. Right? 1 of 2. And that's going to give you a half measure of the grid, but you need to put your box inside of the grid. Okay. So now you see that the box is kind of contained inside of a half column. If I made 2 of these, and duplicate this here, there would be 2 columns, and they're contained in there. You could do the same kind of idea here for a lot of different kinds of combinations of columns. Let's say I want 3 of 5 and 2 of 5. See, now it's a little bit different. I can make this 2 of 5, 1, and 1 of 5. See? Easy. Now these column groups here, these of 5, of 12, this is completely controllable. And what's nice about Toast Grid is that there's a lot of awesome defaults that are easy to change. For example, the word grid here, I'm not exactly excited about this use of the word, because what if I want to do copy and paste that? What if I want two grids? And it's not exactly 2 grids, it's 1 grid, but you're just like having 2 instances of it. So I really like the way that, that Foundation uses the terminology of row. So I'm just going to change this to row here, and then when I go to here, I'm going to use row and row, and then watch when it'll be kind of fixed up a little bit better. So that's what the row, now it's a row. And also this right here, grid column, grid underscore underscore column, I think that's a little bit too much for me. I just want regular column. This is also similar to what Foundation does, and I just like their terminology better. So instead of grid underscore column column everywhere, I'm just going to put column. There we go. Actually, I'll just do a find and replace of grid underscore underscore and remove it all. There we are. So now it should be working fine, and it's a lot less blah 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 blah. Those are the way that you can override the naming of everything. Now let's talk about column groups. There's a preset in here also for column groups. Column groups are the of part right here. So where it says 3 of 5. Now if you were in, like, let's say if you had the Bootstrap grid by default, this is what Bootstrap grid would give you. It's just 12 columns all the time. But let's say you wanted a 12 column and a 16 column grid so you can do really, really weird asymmetrical layouts. Now none of them work, right? Because none of them are 12. Let's fix them. Okay. And we'll do like 6 of 12, 6 of 12 to be half. Right? Do you understand what I'm saying? So these column groups can be a very powerful thing, and you can easily set up what the defaults are going to be here using this variable here called column groups. If it were me, like, I probably never use anything other than 12. 12 is like one of the most divisible numbers, and then if you want to be, do like those kind of really intricate, like kind of asymmetrical kind of grids, you can do maybe a 5 column grid or a 16 column grid to get something unique. But like a 2 column grid, a 4 column grid, I mean, come on, 12 is going to handle that pretty fine, and you're going to get like half the CSS output, right? So remember that this is Sass and it generates CSS. So controlling things and being purposeful about these controls up front is going to give you better results in the end. Okay, so enough talking about that. Let's go on to the next example. The next kind of setting here is the gutters. In the introduction, I said that one of the cool things about Toast is that they have these really pixel perfect gutters, which is very uncommon in grids. They usually have the gutters that are measured out in like ems or rems, or even percentages, but these ones use pixels. And I love that, because if you're going to get some art from a designer, they're not using rems to make their gutters in their design. They're not using percentages. They're using pixels. That's the truth. So this is a little bit more realistic into kind of, I don't know how this works, but anyway, check it out. So I have 20 pixel gutters right here, and I can easily make. Actually, I had to do this in that. When I said recently that I used this grid, I changed these gutters to 60 pixels. And it's just as easy as that. Look at that, 60 pixels, and there they go. These things disappeared because 5, 1, and 10. And let's make that 2 and 4. Okay. So 60 pixel gutter is pretty ridiculous. You're not going to use that all the time, but like, I was doing this job and the client had designed 60 pixel gutters. And instead of being like, oh, how many rems is that? Or like trying to like figure everything out, it's so simple. I just went in here and changed it to 60 and easy done. And notice that the ends are not changing, just the gutters in between them. So I think it handles it really well. I like that idea from this grid. One of my favorite features. Okay, so gutters, and there's also this idea of pushing and pulling, which honestly I don't think I've ever used it on a production site to do pushing and pulling, but pushing and pulling is very similar, and you can turn them off, on or off. Now, why would you want to turn them on or off? Well, again, that's saving the output in the CSS. So if I never have used pushing and pulling in my designs, and I don't expect to, I would turn these off. But let me show you how they work. So I'm going to say call -- push, and I want to push this 2 of 16. And what this does is it just kind of like puts extra margin on the one side of it. So if I move this over to here, it would push the second column over 2 units of the 16 column to the right. Now pull is very similar in the fact that it puts a negative margin on the thing. I'm gonna write tinted on this box. This is the style that I made up that will just change the box to blue. So you can see that the column, the center column, is being pulled on top of the column to the right. Let me put this one as tall so you can see that it's actually going on top of the box to its left. Now why would you want to do that? Let's say you had like some overlapping elements. Like I'm thinking like a Twitter avatar overlaps on top of the the header, what do they call it, the cover image or whatever, on top of the layout. Things like that. You just want, sometimes you want the layout to impact each other, and that's how you would do that. I don't know. Again, I never really use these things in layouts. The Toast Grid is responsive, and I want to show you that, but before I do, I want to show you a little bit of like the weird extras or the fun extras that come along with it. So let's say, for example, we have this pull here. I can go call -- align bottom, AB, and it will just bring my column down to the bottom. It's aligning it to the bottom, which is pretty cool. And I can do call -- AM for middle. And if I want to do the middle, I want to do it on the 2 ones that I want to go to the middle. Now the one on the far right is in the middle, and this is a really great way to like align forms, or like if you have like a line of text and then in the next column a checkbox or something, you can be aware that you can align things vertically as well as horizontally with your grid. So call -- AM or call -- AB, align bottom or align middle, are really great classes that are built into Toast to help you do that. Another interesting one is, let's just duplicate this row here and scoot. Let's make it all right, just doing some quick work here. Let's just make it 3 columns of 12, so it's going to be 4 columns wide. No, 3. Now we have this 4-column grid here in the middle. I want them to not have the gutters, so I go to the row and I write row -- no - gutter. And now that will strip away all the gutters, and we still have 4 columns, but there's no space in between all of them. So you can have, like if you want a seamless grid of images, or like, I don't know, if you just for some reason don't need the gutters in that specific row, you can easily do that. And if I would wipe out this row, you know how you can have multiple rows, and I've been kind of doing definitely rows for every time, but you can like put these all in one row, and their gutters went away too, but they are acting as their own row because of the math that we're using. And also notice in this one row, in row 7, right, these are all together in one row now, that I'm using different column groups. See, check this out. These are 3 of 12, and these are 8 of 16, all in one row. That really doesn't matter. That's just going to dictate the size. And honestly, like 8 of 16 is the same thing as 6 of 12. It's the exact same class actually that's creating those 2 styles. Anyway, so what's next? Okay, here's a cool one. Let's take the no gutter off so you can see better in here. So we have in our boxes, let's number these boxes so we can see what's up. 3, 4, okay. So we have 4 boxes here, 1, 2, 3, 4, and you can see that they're numbered. Let's say that for some reason I want to reorder the columns. This is pretty cool. You can say if you want a column to be treated as the first or the last. So let's make this column number 2 show up before column number 1. And we do that by saying column -- D for display first. Now the columns are reordered, and number 2 is the first one to display. And I can do this the same thing. Let's go to box number 3 and write column -- D for display last. And that number 3 will go all the way to the end. So now the order of our columns is 2, 1, 4, 3. But in our source ordering, it's still 1, 2, 3, 4. But we're just displaying them differently by using these handy classes. The next one I want to show you is really quick. It's just centering. So I'm going to duplicate this row, and instead of having all of these columns here, I just want to have a centered column. So I still want to keep the size of it, and I'll write column dash dash centered. Now that column floats in the center, and you can still control the size of it right here by doing, whatever. So Toast is a responsive grid right out of the box. So I'm in here in my device emulation in my developer tools in Chrome. So by default, when you get smaller than 700 pixels of your device, all of your grid columns are just going to be single column wide. The question is, how do I stop that? Well, you have to target the small or medium and kind of override them. It's a little bit backwards, not exactly mobile first, but it's not too hard. So let me show you with this row, the numbered rows here. Let's say I want to take this row and still keep them as columns when we get into the middle range of the media queries. I would write column dash dash M for medium dash 1 dash of 4. So the thing to keep in mind is that those column groups that we set up don't necessarily apply for the media queries here. These are going to be set to 2, 3, and 4 columns, and also 1. So now these will be into the four columns as we transition from large to medium. The difference being that they're going to be handled that way by different classes. Now they'll still collapse after we get to the small. Now if I still wanted it to kind of have some effect in the small, let's say column dash dash S dash 2 dash of dash 4. I can do one of 2. All right. Go on to this one, do the same. Now when we get into our small, you'll have this 2 and 3 be on one row, and it's collapsing this way. So there's a lot of variability you can build into them using the media queries. Also, you can go into the Toast grid and override where you want the media queries to be. So right here, these breakpoints are set to 700 and 480, but you can change them to whatever's more comfortable for your design. All right, that's kind of like a brief overview of everything that you can do. It's very flexible, very customizable, and the best thing is that it's simple and lightweight. Like, let's take a look at how many lines this outputs in my CSS. Style.css is 300 lines, and that's including everything I wrote. So it's about 300 lines, which compared to other frameworks is pretty lightweight.
Understanding how to use grids as a whole is an essential design skill. And being able to use a variety of CSS grids is a pretty valuable thing to have as a creator. I really enjoyed using Toast, but there are other grids out there that will do similar things with more or less complexity. It's kind of like a spectrum. Not all grids are the same. So you should try a lot of them before you decide on which one you want to stick to for the rest of your life. Do you understand the subcontext of what I'm saying here, Jenny? He's no good for you. There's like one Jenny watching this at home and like, how did he know? Jenny. Anyway, there are other CSS grids out there. This is one video in a series where I talk about a lot of different CSS grids. Be sure to check out those other videos. Links are in the description below. I want to thank you for watching this, and also a big thank you to all the patrons of DevTips, these lovelies right here. These people support the show. They make it possible for me to create these videos every week. And I just want to say thank you so much for believing in me enough to support the show. It means a lot to me, just like on an emotional level. So patrons are awesome. If you want to be an awesome patron, check out patreon.com/devtips. So join us next week for more dev tips, and until I see you then, keep on hacking.